January 30th, 1991, two Iraqi fighter jets tear across the skies east of Baghdad. They're among what's left of Iraq's shattered Air Force, a pair of MiG-25 Foxbats, and their pilots know exactly what they're up against. They're flying Soviet relics, built 2 decades earlier, hopelessly outdated, and never intended for what's about to come next. A showdown with the most advanced fighter jet ever built, the F-15 Eagle. But what happens next isn't supposed to be possible. August 1990. Saddam Hussein commands the 4th largest military on Earth. For over a decade, the Iraqi dictator has ruled through terror, crushing opponents and tightening his brutal grip on power. And now he sets his sights beyond Iraq's borders. On August 2nd, Saddam orders his tanks to storm neighboring Kuwait, a tiny Gulf nation sitting on valuable oil reserves. Kuwait's tiny army doesn't stand a chance, and the country falls within days. The invasion shocks the world. Diplomatic talks quickly fall apart, leaving only one option: decisive military action.
Tonight, 28 nations, countries from 5 continents, Europe and Asia, Africa and the Arab League, have forces in the Gulf area standing shoulder to shoulder against Saddam Hussein.
But Saddam doesn't back down. And now he'll have to face the largest air assault since World War II. Within hours, Iraq is under siege. Hundreds of coalition jets rip through the night sky, tearing apart the country's air defenses with ruthless precision. Communication hubs are hit first. Next, ground control stations, vital for guiding Iraqi pilots in the air, go dark. Without ground control, the country's air force plunges into chaos. And Iraq's airmen suddenly find themselves alone, isolated, and fighting blind. Still, a few brave Iraqi pilots take to the skies, outnumbered and outclassed.
Flash 1, MiG-21 low. It's a MiG-21.
Dozens are shot down, and hundreds more are destroyed on the ground, having never left their bunkers. With his air force quickly being eliminated, Saddam makes a move. He orders his surviving aircraft to escape to neighboring Iran, beyond the coalition's reach. It's an act of pure desperation. January 26th, Iraqi fighter jets begin streaking across the desert at low altitude, flying just meters above the ground to avoid coalition radars. Those closest to the border manage the crossing in a single push. 23 jets break through in just one day. But for those stationed further west, it's a dangerous gamble. They'll need to refuel near the capital, dodging coalition patrols along the way. And it doesn't take long for coalition forces to spot the movements. At first, they assume it's a mass defection of Iraqi pilots no longer willing to fight. But over the next few days, dozens more make the dangerous run for the border. Some are shot down, but many slip through. By January 28th, 82 Iraqi jets have already managed to cross into Iran, stunning coalition commanders. The press is baffled. Some believe the pilots are fleeing the war, but others suspect something darker is unfolding. Coalition forces move quickly, establishing an aerial blockade to stop the flow of fighters. They set up 5 separate combat patrols along the Iranian border. Each is made up of 2 pairs of F-15s cycling between high-speed intercepts and mid-air refueling to the far south. They'll remain airborne around the clock, forming a virtual wall to trap Saddam's remaining jets inside the country. But Saddam isn't finished. He has a plan to break through the wall. On paper, Iraq's Air Force was formidable. 151 of its aircraft were modern, capable fighters. Among them, the MiG-29 Fulcrum had worried coalition planners the most. It was fast, agile, and state-of-the-art. But in combat, the MiG-29 never delivered, losing every single engagement. Saddam was furious. His most prized fighter had failed him. But there was one standout in the Iraq fleet: the MiG-25 Foxbat. During the first night of airstrikes, a MiG-25 shot down an American F-18 Hornet. Hours later, another MiG-25 intercepted radar jammers, forcing them to flee, exposing a nearby F-15 that was then downed by a surface-to-air missile. In yet another clash, 2 MiG-25s challenged 4 F-15s. Even after the Eagles fired 10 missiles, the Foxbats slipped away unharmed. Saddam took note. Designed in the Soviet Union back in the 1960s, the aging interceptor was never meant to face off against agile dogfighters like the modern F-15. It was too heavy and unmaneuverable, and its radar couldn't even track targets below the horizon. But what it lacked in sophistication, it made up for in raw power. The Foxbat was the fastest combat aircraft ever built, and its enormous R-40 missiles could hit targets up to 80 kilometers away. Coalition forces had built a wall, but Saddam would bring a battering ram. The Iraqi pilots knew they would be facing off against a far superior adversary. Their plan is to ambush the combat patrol as they split off to refuel. When the patrol group is the most vulnerable, 2 MiG-25s will be vectored in from opposite directions to initiate a pincer maneuver. With some luck, the F-15s would engage one of the MiGs first, exposing their flank to the second, which would then use its superior speed to close the distance and attack. The Iraqis wait days for the right moment, but in the early afternoon of January 30th, Iraqi ground control detects a target northeast of Baghdad. Within minutes, 2 MiG-25s are scrambled from separate air bases. Captain Mahmoud Awad is vectored north of Baghdad, while Captain Mohammed Samurra flies south. The Iraqi jets climb quickly to 42,000 feet. Once east of Baghdad, they initiate the pincer attack. Samurra is first to obtain lock and wastes no time firing an R-40. But as he tracks the missile, he realizes it's not going to hit anything, because there's nothing flying over eastern Baghdad. It's a false alarm. Ground control has instead picked up a radar anomaly. But 500 kilometers to the south over Saudi Arabia, an American E-3 Sentry is closely monitoring the situation. Detecting the Iraqis, the Sentry alerts a pair of F-15s guarding the border 65 kilometers to the east. The Eagles are being flown by Captain Tom Dietz and his wingman Captain Bob Heeman. But the warning is quickly called off when Awad and Samurra head back into Baghdad's heavily protected airspace. Yet just seconds later, Iraqi ground control detects Dietz and Heeman in their F-15s. The MiGs are ordered to turn back and engage. With full afterburner, they accelerate up to Mach 2, quickly closing the distance between them and the F-15s. The E-3 Sentry frantically warns Dietz and Heeman that they have 2 bandits incoming hot. The F-15s also turn to engage. The jets are now headed straight for one another. It's not the pincer maneuver the Iraqis planned for, but Awad and Samurra are committed. The MiG-25s are about 7,000 feet higher than the F-15s. Lacking look-down capability, their antiquated radars are just barely able to track the F-15s. Heeman is first to get a lock and immediately fires an AIM-7 towards Samurra. But the missile doesn't light. Heeman quickly follows up with a second, but by this point the MiGs have also locked onto the F-15s. Returning the favor, Samurra sends an R-40 towards Heeman. Heeman immediately maneuvers south, while Samurra attempts to outrun the AIM-7 by turning north. In doing so, he breaks lock, but his R-40 still explodes near Heeman, damaging the F-15's left engine. Meanwhile, Diaz attempts to engage Awad, but his first AIM-7 missile also fails to light. Diaz quickly fires a second, but it fails to detach. A third missile yet again fails to light. The situation goes from bad to worse when Diaz gets warning of an incoming R-40. He quickly breaks right into a defensive maneuver. Meanwhile, Heeman pursues Samurra, firing another AIM-7. But he's now being engaged by Awad. Realizing that he's vulnerable, Heeman drops chaff and flares and turns east to evade, while the AIM-7 heading towards Samurra times out. By this point, the Eagle pilots have had enough, and Diaz makes the call to bug out to the east, while the MiG-25s retreat west. The fight has more or less ended in a draw, with 2 Foxbats intact and 1 slightly damaged F-15. Returning from their tanker, a second pair of F-15s attempt to pursue, but Samurra and Awad return safely to their airfields. Against all odds, the Iraqi pilots had done the unthinkable, gone head-to-head with two of the most lethal fighter jets ever built, and made it out alive. The Iraqis had luck on their side, and they were quick to claim victory, certain they'd shot down at least one of the F-15s. American officials dismissed the claim, denying that an F-15 had even been damaged. But behind the scenes, confidence had been shaken. Multiple missiles were fired against the MiGs without a single hit. But for Iraq, it was the last gasp. Saddam's surrender and the liberation of Kuwait would follow just weeks later, and the 100 or so Iraqi jets that had escaped into Iran would never return. Seized by the Iranians, they marked the end of Iraq's once formidable Air Force. American air dominance held firm, and the air battle over eastern Baghdad was a mere jolt, a reminder of how quickly surprise and strategy can shift the balance. December 14th, 1966, a formation of American F-105s cross into North Vietnam. Their target is a critical supply hub near Hanoi. They're expecting the usual heavy resistance, volleys of anti-aircraft fire, and surface-to-air missiles. But today, the enemy has something else in store. Waiting to ambush the F-105s on the return leg are a group of new MiG-25 fighters. Agile, supersonic, and armed with lethal heat-seeking missiles, they're primed for the kill. And before the day is done, yet another F-105 won't make it home. I've been putting the finishing touches on my most ambitious project ever, a story of one of the most brilliant aerial deceptions ever conceived. A plan to flip the air war over Vietnam in a single afternoon, orchestrated by Colonel Robin Olds, a legendary fighter ace who could outsmart the enemy at their own game. What started out as a typical mustard project quickly spiraled into something way bigger, and it should have been finished weeks ago. But the deeper I dug, the better the story became. Every scene had to be perfect. I built 3D models from scratch, choreographed complex dogfights shot by shot, and dug through mountains of archival footage. 50 cinematic animations later, I'm finally nearing the finish line. And trust me, this one is worth the wait, and it's coming exclusively to Nebula. Nebula is where you can watch hours of exclusive mustard videos you won't find anywhere else. It's where I explore captivating stories behind engineering marvels, iconic machines, and groundbreaking ideas that aim to reshape our world. Nebula isn't just another streaming service. It's a platform dedicated to thoughtful, high-quality documentaries, groundbreaking shows, and unique fictional titles. On Nebula, I'm able to go beyond what's possible on YouTube, with longer runtimes, deeper dives, and the freedom to build something truly cinematic without compromise. There's no pressure to chase algorithms, just the freedom to tell the stories I know you'll love. Like my original on the legendary B-2 Spirit, where I cover the story of an aircraft so advanced it could end wars before they even began. Designed to slip through the most heavily defended airspace on Earth, strike with impunity, and vanish before the enemy even knew what hit them. What makes Nebula different is that it's owned directly by us, the creators, so your support goes straight into elevating production quality and funding the kind of ambitious projects that might never see the light of day anywhere else. Whether it's Real Engineering's Battle of Britain series, Neo's Underexposure, or Red Atoms by Real Time History. And joining Nebula has never been easier or more rewarding. Choose between monthly and yearly subscriptions, or even lifetime memberships to enjoy unlimited access forever. And you can now also get Nebula as a gift with annual or lifetime membership gift cards. Sign up now at nebula.tv/mustard or scan the QR code on the screen to get 40% off, so you can enjoy Nebula for just $36 a year or $3 a month.